So hi team, welcome to my channel. First of all, a brief about Hindenburg Saga. So Hindenburg is a activist company which tries to bring some research reports which are in the form of allegations against some public listed companies. For example, what they did was they published a report in month of January against Adani, and what they are alleging is a lot of things here. So there are almost 88 allegations which have been put against Adani as such. And post that, there was a response from Adani also. So this is whole response, and again, it's a 400 pager response. So the whole response was against those 88 points, and there are public listed for the public listed companies. There are like information available like annual report and other things. So, for example, this is one of the annual report which is for year 2021, and since it's for 2021, it was published in year 2022. So, this is one of the annual report. So, again, with this example, what we are going to see is we are going to compare these three: first allegations, then response, and then any other data like annual reports, and see what the AI is thinking about these allegations. Yeah. So again, team, a legal disclaimer. So I'm not a financial analyst. So whatever I'm doing here is for my own academic curiosity. What I believe is this is going to help both the AI community as well as investing community. And these sort of experiments are necessary for the progress as such and bringing AI to the masses. Now, these are definitely very raw in nature, so they are just started. Maybe market regulators can chip in, investing community can chip in, and they can revise these ideas for better maturity. So that is what the intention is. Again, we don't want to hurt any specific parties as such. This is just what data shows us. Yeah. So this is the typical flow which we will follow. So we'll start by some documents. These documents could be allegations, then the responses, then annual reports. We can extend it to news, other regulatory disclosures, and so on. For this experiment, we are only concentrating on allegations, responses, and one annual report. So whenever the allegation was made, just prior to that, whatever annual report was available, we have used that annual report for this. So we'll be basically comparing these three items. Now, we are using a framework, for example, LangChain or LlamaIndex. These frameworks are useful for connecting with large language models. So that's what we are going to do, and they ease the development. So that's the purpose of using those frameworks. Again, as far as embeddings are concerned, embeddings are nothing but, whenever you give some sort of text, those texts at the end are converted into, one of the vectors as such. That's called as embeddings. Now there are many options. We can use uh, things from open source. We can use commercial APIs for this, and that's what I wanted to show here. And again, at the end, we are going to store everything into something called knowledge base. And this is also sometimes called as vector databases. So we are using something called face from Meta, and this is pretty easy to do as such. So all the things that we will be calculating will be storing here. This will be our knowledge base, and we'll be querying from this knowledge base. Now there are two important things also. So first of all, we will try to keep it as simple as possible. We just wanted to demonstrate what we can do for the investor community. And in the part two of the video, what we can do is we can go into much more detail of how these frameworks work. For example, can I get different results when I use a different framework, or when I use some different retrieval method? Can I get a separate sort of output? That's what we are going to do in the part two. But for part one is mainly the response of, one of the embeddings or, knowledge bases, that how at least AI is, seeing these things and responding back. With one of the earlier experiment, what I did was I created a knowledge base for one of the Adani companies, and this company is Adani Enterprises. So there were like a lot of companies from Adani Group which were mentioned, and I choose Adani Enterprises and I selected only one annual report for the year 2021. And what I did was I created a knowledge base, and against those knowledge base, I asked some queries, and these queries are inspired from these allegations only. So, for example, if you see, the first thing which I asked to the knowledge base was, what is the shareholding pattern and promoter stake? Again, the allegation says that there is a high shareholding pattern and promoter stake. Again, nothing legally wrong, but again, this is what AI is also extracting. In one of the next video, we will see how we can refine this. So we can refine this with, different retrievers and so on. But this is just a start asset. So again, there is nothing harmful here. Here, it is just talking about or extracting some shareholding pattern, which is again very high. That's what it did. Now, in the allegation, there was something about Mauritius-based entities. Again, I searched the annual report. There was nothing mentioned there about Mauritius. Again, there was some specific investment fund which was given there. There was nothing mentioned in the annual report about investment fund. There were some things on chief financial officers, which was there in allegations. When I asked annual report, there was no, sort of things which were disclosed here. So again, no good response came from annual report. And again, there was something on audit partners also mentioned in allegation. So again, it gives some information, but again, it's not as such useful. And again, I try to see that, are there any related party transactions? And again, from the annual report as such, which is again public, there is mention of subsidiaries and related party transactions and so on, but nothing out of blue. So next, what I did was I created one of the another experiment where what I did was, rather than, having a knowledge base from created from annual report, you know, given for some queries, what we can do is, can we compare and contrast, what are the allegations, what are the responses, and again try to see, annual reports also. So essentially what we are trying to do is we are trying to see what is the AI's response in terms of, comparing these three indices for one of the queries. So for example, this compare and contrast director of revenue intelligence, this is coming from here only. So from the allegation report, and let's see what the AI gave it the response. So again, for this, I use something called LlamaIndex, and what it does is it can compare different indices for a specific queries, and it can give the responses. So for example, if I see the response here, this is sort of very funny response. So you know, in terms of, if I would say, the source of allegation as such, what AI retrieved is, the allegation is that Vinod Adani, the world's third richest man, is pulling the largest con in the corporate history. Again, it went wrong here, so I'm not sure how did it uh, extracted this specific name. So again, if you see the allegations here, there was this name coming, but again, this is not about the third richest person. So definitely, this is seems to be a wrong response. So what it did is it compares this with, the response from Adani, and Adani's responses is providing common response that the allegation has been disclosed, discredited, and disproved, and so on. So basically, what it tries to doing is trying to pulling information from, first of all, annual report. And again, as we saw, that annual report doesn't have something very much relevant for this. So again, if you see this thing in pink, the response is pretty much very, very naive, or I would say bland. There is nothing interesting. If you see the original allegation, again, it pulled something, but again, this is sort of wrong response, or maybe it hallucinated. So again, uh, the Hindenburg Research report actually is talking about Gautam Adani, not Vinod Adani, but that's where it went wrong. And again, the third response seems to be pretty much normal. So again, it is pulling from the response which Adani gave, and this said that Adani is providing a common response and so on. So this seems to be pretty much right. Now again, what I did was from this report only I talked about queried about custom tax evasion. So let's see what is the response that I get, which I can compare. So basically, if I get about custom tax evasion, so the response from annual report uh, is the customs tax evasion report in Adani's annual report is this one. Okay, so that's what it came from, and I don't think so. This has been mentioned in the annual report, so this is definitely uh, not sure how did it arrive at, but let's see the response which it bought from the allegation. So the allegation of custom tax evasion against has been set of companies to engage in a circular trading scheme and so on. So this seems to be pretty much genuine, and some things like export credits and all. And if you read this report, it discusses about those sort of things mentioned there. So again, it summarizes well, and it's fetching the correct information for at least this thing. Now, the response from Adani is currently contesting the allegations of, and so on against various adjunction. And this is pretty much, uh, pretty much, I would say, very good response from AI, which it has brought in. So if you see the response, if you try to see the response, again, same thing which it tries to find out, those have been mentioned. So that seems to be pretty much good. Now, the question again, which I asked was compare over invoicing of power imports. Again, this was mentioned somewhere. And the response which came from annual report is nothing, which is understandable. Now, the allegation from this, it's coming is over invoicing of our report is related to the falsely invoices more than doubling the voice, declared value of imports of power equipment in order to siphon money abroad from public listed companies. This seems to be pretty much, code extraction which has come. So if I, for example, talk about CERC, so it mentions something like it was energy tariffs are set under CERC and so on. So that has been mentioned, and some more mentions are there for CERC. Yeah. So yeah, it did pretty good job in summarizing that. Now the Adani's response is the allegation of over invoicing of is that initiated against them in respect to over invoicing. Okay, so what they are saying is those allegations have been dismissed by courts. So that is what it is talking about. And if you see the response, I think in the response also this has been mentioned. Not exactly in this manner, but there is something mentioned about those things. Yeah. So again, this is a pretty good summarization it has done. Now, I asked a question like compare Mauritius-based entities. So again, from the annual report, I didn't find any good answer. So that's there. But if I see the allegation as such, the allegation is that, it, so what the allegation was, it was used to facilitate the movement of funds and create money laundering entities and so on. That was allegation. So, not exactly like this language, but if you see this, you will find the similar sort of language which AI has pulled, but see the response also. So response is that, these allegations have already been addressed, and we have a legal right to defend ourselves for any defamatory and false statements. And again, they have done it due compliance and law and so on. So basically, if you see the response, they mentioned that all these allegations, they are, being responded, and whatever things have been done, they are done with due compliance with the law. So that's what the thing AI is pulling. Again, we are talking about regulatory role, so we just wanted to see, what is the regulator's role here. So this is one of the query we wanted to give. So from the annual report as such, not a good response. So, it just talks about general corporate governance and listing regulations, which again doesn't make sense. But if you see the other things, so from this document, which is allegations, it says that the allegations against include overvaluation or circular trading, illegal exports, money laundering, and so on. And again, the response goes that, these all things are disclosed and with the investors and regulators as such, and all the cases have been closed and dismissed in their favor. So this is what the response AI pulled in. Now, one of the query that I gave it to it was, compare chief financial officer's role. So again, we'll compare annual reports. So annual report, there is no good response. So what it is fetching is, again, uh, financial statements, as such, validated by CFO. Nothing more than that. But again, there was one serious allegation, like, there are like multiple uh, CFOs in past 8 to 10 years. So that's what the allegation was. So if I see the allegation as such, this is what AI generated. So the allegations against, have been that, there are 5 CFOs in 8 years, and, 3 CFOs, and so on and so on. So what AI is pulling and again summarizing well is that, there was this question about, having multiple CFOs in, short amount of time. The response, what AI is pulling from this report, is something like this, that, against is that it is misrepresented the fact, and that the several of the CFOs are still with the organization in various other capacity, and they promote people from, time to time in some different or significantly larger roles. So again, this is the response they give, and this is a pretty, I would say, if you read this response, it's summarized well. Now, this is exactly what you will find. Not exactly, it means if you see briefly as such, contextually, what you will find if you try to read this whole PDF as such. So again, the response was good. And again, there was some mention of, Ketan Parekh and all. Uh, so let's see. Again, this was one of the very, very early scams, happened, I think, in 2000. So, you know, okay. So this annual reports, the AI which it extracted or, summarized from annual report is, I think, pretty much bad. I don't think so. There is a mention of, Ketan Parekh in the annual report at all. So yeah, again, it hallucinated. So this is very bad response from AI. But let's see what is the, allegation, what AI extracted or, summarized from this one. So I'm using the word extraction like pretty much loosely. But yeah, so basically the allegation against Ketan Parekh are that to be involved of Adani listed companies and so on. So this is pretty much perfectly well as such. So again, if you see this allegation, what has been mentioned is, that there was some involvement with Ketan Parekh. That is what it has pulled. So AI has pulled this sort of allegation and summarized. What Adani's response was that this is incorrect. And again, this was given to the market regulator, and it has been duly disclosed in the public domain. So that was the response. Uh, so this extraction, or I would say summarization, which the AI as such brought in was, if you go and read these 400 pager documents, this is exactly, contextually what the response for the allegations is. So again, this did a pretty much good job. Uh, so I would say, the most of the responses which AI gave, some of the time it hallucinated. For example, if you see the first case, it, hallucinated and says, Vinod Adani is the world's third largest, richest man, which is again wrong. But most of the time, it summarized pretty well, or it fetched the data from uh, the knowledge base pretty well, except annual reports definitely. And again, annual reports, because annual reports doesn't contain anything. So we saw separately also, and with this experiment also, that there is nothing good coming out of this annual report, because it doesn't contain any sort of disclosures here. So maybe we need to fetch some more external entities. So that's what's happening. But more or less, the AI did a pretty much good job. So that's great. I would say this is good, and this definitely could augment what market regulators are doing. Not a perfect response always, but definitely a good response. Now, with the next steps, what we can do is we can again refine these outputs. We can try different other language models. We can try different frameworks. We can try different retrievals and see what the response could be. So, yeah, let's try to do it next time. Thank you all for listening. Thank you so much.